Gays Reading, where the greats drop by. Trendy authors tell us all the who, what, and why. Anyone can listen, cause we're spoiler-free. Gays Reading, from Pulitzer stars to book club picks, where the curious minds can get their fix. So you say you're not gay, well that's okay. There's something for everyone. Gays Reading.
Hello and welcome to Gays Reading. I'm your host, Jason Blitman, and on today's episode, I have Eliana Ramage talking to me about her book, To the Moon and Back, and my guest gay reader is M.L. Rio, whose book Hot Wax just came out last week. To the Moon and Back is this month's Reese's book club pick. I'm so excited for Eliana. I just announced my October book club pick with Alstora. It is Middle Spoon by Alejandro Varela. I just released an episode with Alejandro talking about the book, which, of course, that conversation is spoiler-free, so anyone can go listen to it. But we talk about the book, we talk about some of the themes and stuff, and it's so good, it's so interesting, and I don't want to say too much about it, but it's a book told through unsent emails to a recently ex-boyfriend. And there's themes of polyamory and heartbreak and grief. And it's super interesting and really prescient. And I'm so excited. You could check out the link in the bio or in the show notes to learn more about the Alstora Book Club. Your very first book is only $1, which is great. So you can get Middle Spoon for just $1. What else do I need to share? Oh, of course, Eliana and ML's bios are both in the show notes. You can follow us on social media. We are at Gays Reading over on Instagram. There is a Gays Reading Blue Sky, but I feel like the people aren't using Blue Sky anymore. So I've been less active over on the Blue Sky. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but we're there. So you can follow us there too. There's also Substack and merch and so many things, so many Gays Reading things. And of course, if you like what you're hearing, please share us with your friends. We are just a super itty bitty indie podcast, which I know sounds crazy because there have been some really tremendous guests on the show, including today's, of course. But it's an indie podcast. It's a labor of love. And so any support is super, super appreciated. And how can you support? Really, of course, you can join the Substack or buy merch, but even more so, of course, is leaving a review over on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to the podcast. You can also, all of the episodes are over on YouTube. And so if you want to subscribe to the YouTube channel, that's a great way to support too. Just click the subscribe button over there or on your podcast platform of choice as well. I think those are all the things. Yeah, that's everything. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for being here. And now, please enjoy my conversations with Eliana Ramage and M.L. Rio. Eliana Ramage, welcome to Gays Reading. I'm so happy to have you here.
I'm so happy to be here.
Here to talk about your book, To the Moon and Back.
There it is.
This is going to be one of my favorite books of the year. No pressure.
It's very kind.
And I was reading it simultaneously with a book called Indian Country by Shobha Rao. And this is a book that is not on anyone's radar. And I need everybody to be reading it because it is so good. And reading the two books simultaneously it broke my brain. And it was the perfect way to consume both books. I loved them both so much. They were cousins of each other. Mm-hmm. And I just finished them both yesterday. And I'm like in a state of ecstasy because it is not always the case where you like read two books simultaneously and they both are going to be among your favorites of the year. So I'm coming to you from a very excited place.
Now, so I think it was like last week that I heard about Indian Country and I was excited about it. Now I'm like really ready.
Yeah, it is a cousin of your book and I think you're going to like it. Anyway, for the people, what is your, I'm sure not very practiced, elevator pitch of To the Moon and Back?
To the Moon and Back. It is a novel about one young woman's relentless quest to be the first Cherokee astronaut and the women she loves best whose lives are changed by her journey. That is my memorized pitch.
Very succinct. Perfect. Don't take this the wrong way. I'm shocked by how much I laughed.
How could I ever take that the wrong way?
I don't know. You're like,
I'm
what? Did you
thrilled.
think I wasn't going to be funny?
It actually didn't used to be funny because I think that might be like a little bit of a literary fiction thing that, at least for
Not
me,
allowed to be funny.
yeah, I was like, oh no, especially starting out, it's like they must be crying. And one of the ways we're off topic, but one of the ways I got into writing in general was in high school. I was writing a lot of creative nonfiction essays, and I realized that anytime I wrote a nonfiction essay about my grandmother, who was like my closest person in the world and was like living with us and had Alzheimer's, like my mom and my aunt would cry, and so I'd be like, oh, I need to like, writing has power. Let's like keep writing these like really deep, sad things.
Yeah.
Anyway, so didn't think I was supposed to be funny in books, and then I was lucky enough to end up with a U.S. editor, Margot Schickmenter, and a U.K. editor, Bobby Mustin Owen, who are both like two of the funniest people I know. And in the last couple of years of drafts, it became like how can I make them laugh? Like, I really want them to laugh. They're so funny.
Yeah. Like literally on page 6 in the galley is really page 2. And we're like halfway down. And I wrote LOL with an exclamation point. Like page 2, I'm laughing already. Anyway, that just surprised me. And I wanted to tell you that. Steph, our protagonist in the book, she declares that there's one thing that would hold her over until she could get to the rest of her life, and that is space camp. She decides that like she just needs to go to space camp because that'll hold her over. What would your thing have been? Or what would your thing be now even?
Whew. Okay, I went through different phases.
Yes, tell me. I want to know. Tell me all of them.
I wanted to be an actor, and then
Okay.
I wanted to be a doctor, and then my friends, I wanted to be a pediatrician. I was really into it, and then after 3 years of that dream, I was in second grade, and my friend's mom said that, what do you want to be? And I said, obviously a doctor. That's what my personality is, that I want to be a doctor. And then she said, no, you don't, because of the malpractice insurance. She said people are going to
That is
sue
a
me
good point.
for being a bad
But like,
doctor.
why are you telling a 6-year-old that?
I don't know, but it killed the dream. I didn't know what it was, but I was like, people are going to
Interesting.
sue me, whatever that is. And then I wanted to be an actor, and then I went to a week of acting camp, and we had to audition in like first grade, and the part they gave me was a chair, and people sat on me, and a table, and people ate on me. This was for Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. I wanted to be a sign language interpreter, but I didn't know sign language, and I wanted to be an Arabic interpreter and a Spanish interpreter. Like, there were all these really intense phases with writing on the side, but like all these really intense dreams that like died.
Fascinating. It like sense that you've become a writer though, because you can live out whatever dream or fantasy you want now.
Yes.
Oh, that's so interesting. Was there something where you were like, I'm desperate to blank as a kid? So if Steph's was, I'm desperate to go to space camp, you were like, I'm desperate to have a dog, or I'm desperate to dye my hair? Or was there something that you were like, I need to do this or I'm going to die as a child?
I needed to win the Reading Rainbow contest that I never won.
Devastating. Wait, tell me more about this contest.
I don't remember if it was called like the Reading Rainbow Story Contest or Book Contest or what, but it was like the children, you can do every year. You write a book, a children's book, because you're a child. You write a book and you like color each page. You're like making the actual thing, and then you mail it into your local PBS station, and they choose the winner. And then you don't. I mean, I guess some people win. I lost over and over.
The story did not have a happy ending.
Yeah.
Oh,
but at one
no.
point, my last year doing it, before I think I aged out, I plagiarized maybe it was Ella Enchanted. I was like, okay, fine, I'll do a book that like other people like. And I did a 10-page handwritten version of that. And that didn't win either.
Oh, man. Maybe no one won. Do you know anyone who did?
My brother got honorable mention.
Oh, my God.
And
Of course.
So we got to go to but because he won, we went to the local station for PBS, and they had a magician.
What was the magician doing there?
He was the prize for the good writing kids. And like their siblings who were tag-alongs.
The prize was go to a magic show at the local PBS station.
It's PBS. Like
So rare. I was not expecting any of
they
this
can't
journey.
throw around
Oh,
like giant prize.
no, but a certificate. I don't know. I was not
Mm.
expecting.
You also got a certificate with LeVar Burton's, like a copy of his signature, which was like a squiggle,
yeah.
like a big circle, squiggle, squiggle. Yeah.
Cute. I would like to meet him one day.
Oh yeah.
He's
Same.
maybe a dream guest.
Could that would be great.
My previous dream guest was Rosie O'Donnell, but she has since been on the show.
Yes.
So now I think it needs to be LeVar Burton.
I
Oh,
was
what a
gonna
good
say
dream
you should
guest.
make your dream list and have all your
Right.
dreams come true.
I know. Oh my God. Now we need to do that for you. I'm like, I'm devastated that this little dream for little Eliana did not come true.
I know. And now there's no
Anyway.
illustrations in this one.
Oh,
And nobody wanted to see my
no.
art.
So many words, no illustrations. Okay, I'm like, excuse me. As I was prepping for this, I was like, this is all over the place because the book was just like swirling inside of me and I didn't really know where I wanted to start or what I wanted to talk about. But there is this like intersection of this young woman's Cherokeeness and queerness and growing upness. I don't know what the right word for that is, but there is this
Coming
like
of
intersection
age.
of coming of age. Oh my God, yes, thank you. Remember I said it's early.
It's one of my prepped words.
Right, buzzword, coming of age, take a drink. Right, intersection of coming of age, queerness, Cherokeeness. What was putting pen to paper of all of those intersections like for you?
I have not thought of it like that before. It took a long time.
Yeah.
So maybe the experience of it was like I wasn't sitting down thinking I'm going to take these. I didn't think. One of the things that's been interesting about publication world is that like before it, you're not really asked to like answer questions like what does it mean?
Right.
And so just in the last 3 months, I've been sitting down and thinking about this and talking about it and like understanding after the fact that there are things like queerness and Cherokeeness that like there are things about her identity that were always going to be there, that were there from the beginning, but
Yeah.
the specific way in which all of these different parts interacted was just many years of let's focus on this. And what if we were in that situation? Let's focus on that, like all of these different things, and then trying to understand how they could move together while I was also like growing up at the same time.
Sure. So like you were intersecting Eliana's coming of age with Steph's coming of age and these other pieces of her. So as you were discovering it then, or as it got itself on the page, and you were like, oh, this is what my book is about. What was that? Maybe reflecting, what is your experience like now? Being like, oh, this is what's on the page.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you? Because these are also pieces of you.
Yes, I think the biggest way that I've started to think about it in a way that I didn't as it was happening was the coming of how much older I had gotten in the time it took to write this.
That's interesting. Say more. What do you mean?
It took 12 years. And I started it when I was in like the first sort of spark of it was my first few weeks of college. So my first time out of the house. And
Wow.
my experience of that was like, oh, I know exactly what's going to happen. Like I'm going to major in the Arabic language, even though I have never taken a class in that. Like you have I had like a pretty certain understanding of what was going to come next in like many different categories. And here we are like 12 years later. I didn't expect anything that happened.
Uh-huh.
And that's like now from this distance, I can say that is like a very, very familiar path. You grow up and you change, and that is not a bad thing, even if bad things are happening as part of it. This is just like the arc of growing up is something that I appreciate at 34 now. And so one version of that in terms of what it means is that when I started writing this book, I had an understanding of this is like an ambition story. We've got like a straightforward, like somebody wants to be an astronaut, and then let's add like the at any cost concept. And then over the years, the people around her became so much more important than that. And her idea of belonging became the heart of the book. So became so much more of a family story and like a humanity story than what she probably thought it was about when she would have been my age.
Sure. So you, as you've just explained, didn't have that one singular dream your whole life, but you did have maybe big dreams that changed. I'm curious, like, seeing her journey, what is the Eliana parallel? Like, you obviously are very ambitious. You had like lofty goals and dreams. And how do you see your queerness and Cherokeeness intersecting with the journey that you went on?
Oh, that's so interesting. First off, I know I had these really intense phases, but those were all my like backup to being a writer dreams.
Well, you also said writing on the side. So
Yeah.
there is something very interesting about people who have decided that is not a realistic journey, so they're going to put it on the side or put it on the back burner.
Yes. And it's like something that I enjoyed and it's something that I wanted to get better and better at. But yeah, like that was not a job because it's still not it's like such an imaginary thing.
But so is being an astronaut.
True. So I think that's one, in terms of when you ask me to compare myself to her, there's so many ways we're different. But one way, just in terms of ambition and career, is she's a child who, like, when we first meet her, announces, like, this is what I'm going to do. Nothing else matters as much. And I'm willing to throw other things away and, I don't know, do some things that I would never, ever do. And then for me, writing was always second to other people. How I always wanted to be, I don't know, like I wanted to have a job that I loved, that was stable, that I didn't have to worry about, and have kids someday and spend a lot of time with friends and family. I don't know. I like was thinking about the day to day, and I was not interested in like the agony of your job is writing. And yeah, actually, that's not fair. It's not about the agony of that. It's more just I would not have thought of that as that's not a job you can go get.
Sure.
Yeah. Like not yet. I wanted something I could apply for.
In a weird way, that makes you the opposite of Steph.
Yeah. And it feels weird to talk about ambition that way because I really, like, as I'm a parent, I'm like not trying to say that you like can't be a writer and a parent. I just think that from like my childhood dream was, I had these things that sounded like really ambitious, but I would never have put them above other people in the way that she does. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So one of the hilarious to me moments in the book is ambition has been a theme running through my own life too. When I was a kid at theater camp, I got a certificate for something at the end of this session.
Good job.
Thank you. And on the certificate said, "Shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you'll land among the stars." And that has been a mantra throughout my whole life. And when I think about ambition, it's okay, just try your best. And then worst case scenario, you're still like amongst the best.
Yeah.
And then of course the malaprop in the book is shoot for the moon, even if you miss, you'll land among the stairs, which I basically peed in my pants, which was not a typo. It's supposed to be that way in the book. So it's just interesting to hear. I think I'm so stuck on this like ambition and not comparing you to Steph, but hearing your journey and your life story, because I was so stuck thinking about me and my journey and who I was and what that trajectory is. And I think thinking about a person wanting to be an astronaut, you're like, what does that even mean?
Yeah. I love that it's like an impossible dream.
Yeah. What was that like research experience like for you? Because there's a lot of like science-y, very official stuff that comes up in the book. I'm
so happy you called it science-y.
Well, it's science-y. I didn't say.
Because it's not science. It's science-y. It was basically.
Yes.
As basically this is like very writer of me, but I like have such veneration for science and scientists as like a concept in the universe, as a metaphor. Cannot do it. There's math.
Yeah, my husband has a degree in chemistry.
Oh, wow.
Me, it does not
Yeah.
compute to me.
No,
Yeah.
but it's so beautiful. So happy other people are out there doing it. So the way I approached science was I thought back on the way I connected to science as a kid. And the story is that I loved science when it was a story. And then once it was like eighth grade physical
Mm,
science and they brought in the math, and it was like dead to me forever. Or at least I could never do it. I could never understand it in the same way.
sure. Right, right,
Yeah.
right.
So it was always story first, and then research was like the rule. I don't hold myself to the standard of I need to understand everything there is to understand about being an astronaut. But if I figure out, okay, in a previous draft, there was like a NASA Christmas party. So I realize this isn't a science example once I say it, but I was like, okay, I'm going to look at all these YouTubes of the decoration contest at Johnson Space Center, do all of the research like for that thing that has already appeared in the story, but I'm not going to
Yeah,
get into the textbooks.
sure.
Yeah.
A little bit of reverse engineering.
Yes. And then a
Yeah.
little bit of other people check your work.
Sure. Sure. And then say, okay, this is how it would actually happen, or
Yes.
this is the sciencey portion that you're missing. Yeah, that
Yes.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting to hear you say that you understood science best when it was story, because when you said you wanted to be a sign language interpreter,
Hmm.
I took sign language in college. And it came so easily to me.
Hmm.
And I think part of it is because I generally talk with my hands, and I have a background in theater and in movement and needed to learn choreography. And so there was this sort
Yeah.
of synchronicity of like brain and body moving together,
Yeah.
and it came naturally. So it's interesting that I don't know that we as humans lean into that enough. That thing where we're like, oh, I'm so good at this because how my brain works.
I really like that. And when you said the thing about Indian Country being like a cousin book, just in the last few months, I've been thinking about fiction and nonfiction. I'm reading more nonfiction now than I did before, and how much fun it is to like link those two together, figure out what you're interested in a fictional way, and then move from there.
Yeah. I was just talking to an author friend of mine, and long story short, I was sharing that some of the work of theirs that I liked the most was their fiction that is truest to them.
Yeah.
And I was like, really, I think the answer is you need to be writing nonfiction. And it was this interesting
Yeah.
unlock, I think, for both of us to be like, oh, we shouldn't be fitting ourselves into the thing that we think we're supposed to be fitting ourselves into.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's letting the storytelling of science come naturally to us, because that is who we are.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Speaking of metaphor, I say speaking of metaphor as though you just said the word metaphor. You said it like 4 minutes ago. But speaking of metaphor, the word alien comes up a couple times in the book. And it feels like one of those things where it happened naturally as you were writing. And then upon reflection, you're like, oh, this holds such a deeper meaning now than it did when I was putting it down on the page. But right,
Yes.
the idea of obvious, like space alien, also alienating as a young person or in general, being new, different,
Yeah.
is a sort of theme throughout the book. How do you relate to that? What does that mean to you? To fit in a space where you perhaps don't feel like you're supposed to fit in.
I think it's fun answering questions about other people's like inner lives, because you don't really know what's going on. But my assumption is that's something that like a lot of people, maybe most people, I don't know, also feel. And I talk to a lot of writers who feel it and talk about it. And even if that's something that was a bigger thing in childhood, or even if they've come into their own in a different way as adults, that's something that they're still interested in for themselves, for other real people, for other fictional characters. And I think my experience of that was, I think this was in a previous draft in it, and I don't remember if it's still there. But my experience of it is something where I always had like a smaller group of really close friends, but like a smaller group when I was growing up. And especially when I went to college, I had this like self-consciousness and this feeling of everybody is like being cool without me. And then You realize after the fact, whether that's like through going back for a reunion or just getting older and experiencing the world more, you realize, or I realized that that was in my head. There were so
Mhm.
many times when people outside of my like immediate friend circle, so many people had invited me to be in their lab group or come to lunch with them. Or people are kind and they're either just not thinking it just doesn't. They're no one's trying to be mean.
We're all just trying to survive.
We're all yes, yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it's a younger person. Oh, that's not nice to young people everywhere. Okay, that's an Eliana as a younger person thing.
Honestly, I think more adults try to assimilate or try
Mm,
to fit in a way that we don't even realize. And did you watch the TV show Overcompensating?
no, but it sounds already like the title.
Yeah. So upon first initial watch, you're like, oh, this is a little cringy because all the characters are overcompensating and it's these college students. But the more you watch, the more you're seeing everybody is overcompensating. The
Mm-hmm.
cool kids, the nerds, the parents, the teachers, everybody. We are all just trying to figure it out and fit
Mm-hmm.
in and be liked and all of that.
Yeah.
And so it's so interesting, like just thinking about the idea of alienating and thinking about alienating and isolating are two different things. But I think as
Hmm.
an author, writing is such a solitary experience. And now to be talking about your book and coming into the coming up for air, coming up
Yeah.
to the light, it's got to be such a jarring experience that you can connect dots with plot points in your book as well, which for you in particular is very specific. But so I'm just thinking that's where
Yeah.
my brain was also.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I agree. It's so, the book is not even out yet. And it's already so
Yeah.
strange to me that you have it.
I had it, I read it. There are things that are underlined
Yeah.
and things marked in the margins. Yeah,
And
I
it's
imagine it's
not
weird.
about the author, but it also feels so personal because I grew up writing this,
What was that like for you?
writing it while I was growing up.
It's
Yes,
funny, you just changed the phrasing.
I did.
Grew up writing it and writing it as I was growing up are two different things. Because
Grew
I
up
think,
writing it.
because it, I think the first way you said it makes it sound like it taught you.
I agree. I think it did teach me a lot. And the biggest thing it taught me, I think, yeah, I think the biggest in terms of the experience of writing it. So worked on it, went to grad school, worked on it, finished grad school, stopped writing for 2 years. And I think I came back to it for a lot of different reasons. But the short version of that experience of going back to it was an understanding of, okay, we're planners, or I'm a planner. It would be nice to all of those years. I was like, I'm working towards something, I'm planning something, and then not giving up on that plan, not writing for 2 years, realizing how much it meant to me, like the actual writing, how much it meant to me, and realizing how much I wanted to tell this story. And I wanted to like see these characters through and see it through for myself. It was like because it was my first time not writing, it was my first experience of this is what I want to be doing. Just like this act of writing with no one reading it. This is what I want to be doing with my life.
That's major.
I'm glad it was hard not to write for it.
Yeah, yeah,
Part
that's
before was
great.
hard, but I'm glad it happened.
Yeah. The beginning of the book, knowing like your age and knowing just a little bit about
Yeah.
you, maybe this is accidental, but the beginning of the book is very Little Mermaid coded.
How? Wait.
I should have first asked you what was your favorite Disney movie as a child, because that would have been hilarious.
Oh no, it was a
Um,
problematic phase. It was Beauty and the Beast.
but I
Yeah.
love Beauty and the Beast is so good. The whole Stockholm Syndrome thing.
That's
Big
Little
dreams
Mermaid.
and parent not wanting the kid to follow the dreams, wanting to be, the world out there is scary.
Mm-hmm.
And they think that King Triton thinks the way to protect Ariel is to not let her go.
You're right.
That's the beginning of your book. Sorry.
Wow. Wow. This is my favorite reading.
So basically, this is a retelling of Little Mermaid.
Yes.
You're like, I want people to read my book. So I'm going to, just like with Ella Enchanted when I was a
Yes.
kid, I'm going to rewrite The Little Mermaid. Yeah. What does that mean hearing me say that to you?
Very fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have a lot of empathy for the mom character in terms of that like journey I was talking about earlier of like just focusing all my energy on stuff when I was younger and then expanding. So I think even as a young person, my King Triton reaction was like, you meanie. And I
Right.
get it.
Yeah. It's like I see memes these days where it's like Mrs. Doubtfire, and everyone was like, as a kid, you're mad that the mom was a spoil sport and was like mad that there was a pony in the house and the
Yes.
birthday party was a mess. And now, as an adult, you're like, no, I totally side with the mom.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's what that feels like. Going back to the research component, you talking about science, but also a big part of the book is the Indian Child Welfare Act.
Yes.
Can you share a little bit about what that is, what that means?
Sure. It is a really important federal law, and it establishes standards for the removal and the placement of Native children. The like easiest way I can say that as a non-lawyer is that like when there's a Native child who is being placed with another family, then it's like step one, that placement would be with a member of their family. Step two, with someone from their same tribe. Step three, with someone who's from a tribe, like who's Native, but who's not from their same one. And step four is then we go to what would happen in a non-ICWA case. And it was passed in, I believe, 1978, but not passed like just for kicks, like passed because it came out of this really long, really dark history of Native children being removed not just from their families, but also from their nations for a long time without any sort of check on that.
Yeah. So much of the book, too, is about the sort of dynamic and relationships of being Native and what that means to some of these characters. What's your relationship like with being a member of the Cherokee Nation?
My relationship, it's just a fact of my life is that I've always known that I'm Cherokee Nation citizen. That's what my family is. We also don't live in like northeastern Oklahoma where Cherokee Nation is. Also, the majority of Cherokee Nation citizens today don't live there, which is not to say that that's an insignificant place or that most people or that a lot of people don't live there. It's more to say that when I was writing this, I think I was just as interested in what does it mean for someone to go to space as I was in the question of what does it mean for like us and other tribes, but I'll just speak to ours, like for us to be a people who at first there was some understanding of who we are based off of like Cherokee homelands, and then we have removal. So now there's like an understanding of you're in this jurisdictional area I was just talking about on the government level. And now, not only what does it mean for me to grow up in Nashville with two other Native students in my high school, one of them Cherokee, one of them a different tribe, but also like Cherokees on Mars. What do we do with that? I don't think that the tribe is defined forever by location. Location is really important. So is language. So all of these different things. But to me, it like boils down to connection and belonging and story and all of these things that are just so hard to define that it was like, I guess we're just going to spend a few hundred pages thinking about that in this novel without answering it for anyone.
Sure. And it's interesting because what I'm hearing you say is we all don't have to be, how do I want to say this? We all don't have to be defined by the things that we think define us. And yet we also are not who we are without the things that define us.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? Because I think there can be this exploration of Cherokeeness, as I was saying earlier, and being in Oklahoma. But that doesn't have to, quote unquote, define Steph's aspirations.
Yes.
And so and she could redefine it by being the first Cherokee astronaut on the moon.
That goes into this story that was like, I think of as like the first spark of the book, even if it wasn't the first day that I started writing it. And it was that so Dartmouth College it's where I went to undergrad, and it has a really great Native student program, Native Studies program, like all of it's just a great place to go if you're Native. And so we were all in this room as freshmen talking about research projects. It was like an extracurricular independent study thing. And one day, all of our conversations over the whole session of just freshmen with 2 sophomore mentors, all of our conversations were set in the past. And it was this like tone in the room of each of us had maybe decided there's a point in history where nobody was using the word purity because that's gross, but there's some point in history of tribal purity. And then all these bad things have happened. And it's just like you get farther and farther away from what it means to be whatever your tribal nation is. So like a definition of self based off of loss. And so I was 18, and that was like freshman fall, really early, not only into like me leaving home, but also me being not only just with like other Cherokee people or people I'm related to, but like all of these Native people from all of these different tribes with different experiences around the country. And one of them was a sophomore, and he stopped the conversation and was like, don't keep thinking of your tribes as what they were at one point in the past. Like, why are you choosing 1850 instead of 1720? There's no like point at which you could choose that. And so his next step of that equation was like, he actually said, if one of you were to become an astronaut, that would become a part of the story of your people.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Thank you, Winter Fox. So none of us became astronauts. But it was so cool that he was 1 year older than us and felt like he had something to teach us on such like a kind of vulnerable level that just that sentence just kept like playing over and over until we got the astronaut novel.
Wow. What a good story.
Yeah.
So you could write a little nonfiction article about that. Thinking about my own life and how that relates to being gay, I see so many parallels with sort of elder gays who are alive now, who are not anti-gay marriage, but who don't see the necessity in the way that a younger person might, because to them, gay history is something else and being gay means something else.
Yeah.
And to your point, why are we only thinking about what it was like to be gay in the 60s, 70s, or 80s, or particularly pre-HIV and AIDS, and it being this like underground and subversive lifestyle in quotation marks? But why are we not thinking about what it was like to be gay in the 1500s or in the 1300s? Right. So our history is long.
Yes.
The history is long and our memory is short.
That's so true. And Steph, the main character of this book, she's gay, born 10 years before I was born. And she
was living a very gay old life at a time where I was like, good for you, girl.
But it's like astounding to me in terms of what is this like historical point of gayness that we would think of, like even just 10 years off on the timeline from my own experience. We're talking about her having a very different childhood than I did. And so what's exciting is all of these different experiences of that similar identity.
Yeah. Okay, related but unrelated. And this is leading somewhere. So not to put you fully on the spot.
Okay.
But what was your dating life like when you were Steph's age, when she was going on so many dates?
Oh.
You don't have to get into too many details if you don't want to, but what was your...
When she was going on her like Tinder rampage?
Uh-huh. Yeah, what was your Tinder rampage?
I never had a Tinder rampage. I got married when I was 20 and to someone very kind. And then when I was maybe 28, we got divorced. And then I did a few more dates and then I got married. No Tinder rampage. And when I say a few more dates, sorry, I don't mean I like met someone and went on 3 dates. I mean, just
I'm not
going to
lie. So I'm a little disappointed only for my follow-up question to that, or what I was hoping.
Yeah.
And maybe this was a fantasy experience for you, and I'm curious, and we could talk about this. There is, I don't want to say my favorite section of the book, but because I loved so much of the book, but there is a moment where Steph shares, or on Steph's Tinder profile, she includes quotes and reviews
Yes.
from previous people she's been on dates with. So I was going to ask you, what do you think in both ways? What are some reviews that you think you would have received, and what are some reviews that you would give?
Oh my gosh, man, this is so disappointing for you.
I'm so disappointed. Okay, you went on a couple dates. What are some reviews that you would give those people?
That's a great question.
Here's one for me.
Okay.
You were super nice. Wished you'd brushed your teeth after you had dinner before we made out.
Hard agree. Yeah.
I remember where I was. I remember
no.
exactly who it was.
Oh, I'm sorry you've had that experience.
That's okay.
I think that any review of me would be too colored by how, in any review I had for someone else, I was just like the review would be like, not enough Tinder rampage. Just,
Go on the rampage.
Yeah. A long time before we got married, like one of our early conversations had to do with, oh, you want children? I also want children. Let's have that conversation on the first date. And that's not, in terms of the 1,000 ways that like my life and Steph's life are not the same, it's not her path.
Yeah, no, that's not her path. She couldn't let anything get in her way of her dream. So that, like, the dream was the priority.
Yes.
When I was dating, I never wanted to waste my time. So even if they weren't going to be my forever person, I wanted to know that there were enough similar interests, enough similar trajectories or dreams or aspirations for it to be worth my while to go on more like dates with those people.
Yeah.
But to have a little fun is a different thing. To go on a rampage is a different thing.
Exactly. A rampage is very fun to write about.
Uh-huh. Oh my God. You need a Substack called The Ramage Rampage. You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
That was free. That was a free idea. There are so many like big questions in the book that like break your brain and it just makes you feel small. And at the end of the day, we are all just teeny tiny specks of dust in this galaxy, in this universe. And what is it all for? This is ridiculous. And the question of what if we get hit by an asteroid comes up. What did you face any of that thinking bigness while you were writing the book?
Yes.
Yes, period.
Yes. No, I've thought about it forever. I think there's two categories. So I've thought about it forever in terms of the choice of optimism or cynicism. Where are we headed? Like just honor. Too much talking with my hands.
Yeah.
So I've thought about it forever in terms of what are we doing just left to ourselves on this planet? This is us. What are we? Where are we? What direction? In which direction are we headed? What is our responsibility to one another? Big theme of the book. And then interrupting that, I have had the occasional fear of asteroids after watching the movie Don't Look Up.
Oh, I didn't watch it.
I don't think you should because it was too upsetting. So I've quieted part 2 in my brain. I think I've partly quieted it out of more focus on part 1. And if we go back to the coming of age stuff we were talking about earlier, the older, especially like in that leaving high school era in the 20s, you start to read the news more. You start to understand more the terrible things that not just are happening in the world, but that like we are doing or we are allowing to happen. And so it gets harder and harder to ignore that there's a decision to be made there. Are you going to have this bumper sticker that like was one of the sparks for the book where I was like driving around and I saw someone, it was like, I was in the middle of the book, but it was someone's bumper sticker said, it was an election bumper sticker and said like giant asteroid now or something like that. Instead of this candidate or that candidate, it was like just kill us all.
It was like calling for the asteroid.
Yeah, which is funny. And I immediately hated it. And so I think this book was like the characters in it. And I, as someone growing up, have to be like, okay, like we are going to continue to read the news. We are going to also make a choice to stay hopeful, stay engaged. Not like hopeful, it's all fine, but like active hopeful.
How do you define active hopeful?
Not ignoring things that are happening. So not being like, I don't know, like things are fine and like this house. So being informed, being engaged with what's going on, and also whatever ways there are for each person to improve the world, to like be aware of what those ways are, know that they're always changing, choose to do them, choose to think that even if they are small, they are worth doing. And so in this book, Steph thinks that the way to do that is to become an astronaut so that we can be an interplanetary species, and like those of us on Mars will continue. And then Kayla, her sister, thinks that the way to do that is to be like a native activist / social media influencer and really lean into whatever happens with this planet. Like, our land and our traditions must be protected.
Yeah.
And those are two really different, equally legitimate things.
Yeah. Steph is basically, the world is fucked. Let's jump off while we can.
Yeah. I guess when I say equally legitimate, I don't mean that I think that like just some of us should survive on Mars. I'm not pro.
No. In terms of, she is, if we're going to make change, like the change can't happen here. It has to happen elsewhere. And it has to be bigger than what we know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she gives herself space for ambition, which, as we were talking about earlier, like there's a line between ambition and selfishness, and just how are you using your power?
Yeah.
Things the book is interested in.
The book is about big questions of the world and the universe and the galaxy, and it's about small questions like just family and siblings. And you joked, not just in this house, but in the world and in the universe at large. And I think the book really covers the ground of both this house and the universe. And so I think part of why this conversation is so difficult for me is because I don't want to spoil anything in the book. And it really covers a lot of ground in how many pages is it? Barely 400 pages, under 450 pages. And I think I am on my own journey of figuring out how to be, what did you say, actively hopeful? And I think, yeah. So I'm surprised at how hard this conversation is for me.
I think it's hard for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me. And I think it's a daily question, especially now. Yeah.
Yeah. It's rare that I finish a book and I'm like, oh, now I have to talk to the author about these things, and I'm sitting with a lot of it myself.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it's interesting.
And
it took me by surprise.
I appreciate that. I think the world kind of takes me by surprise. And
yeah.
Everything. I'm like, remember what we talked about an hour ago? So to go back to that like thing where I was younger and you're like getting older and like understanding that other people have like inner lives. So a friend was texting me this morning about something really hard that had just this morning happened to her personally. And I was talking to her about what had happened to her personally, and she was like, yes. And also the thing that I like can't get out of my mind is like what's going on in the news. And it's ongoing. And also right now, it's like extra hitting me now. And it made me think about how often these conversations are either like really happening, like this was a conversation that actually happened between friends, and how often it's like it's just in your head that maybe you're like figuring out your own ambition, or you're like just trying to go to work, you're trying to do whatever it is you're trying to do. And then there's that constant choice of how much do you actively engage with the outside world. If that's like in this book, it's like family, tribal nation, world, universe. It's a lot to hold on whatever day it is today.
Yeah. It's all so big. And I think it's cool, and the book makes you think, and it makes you want to call your sibling if you have one and take care of your community and remember where you came from, even whatever that means to you.
Yes.
You know?
I kept landing on that. Every time I talk about this, is like, it's a book about families. I'm like, families, whatever that means to you, or like kids, whatever that means to you.
Yes.
Friends, whatever that means to you. I feel like as I got older writing this book, just everything has just gotten, it's just expanded life and the book. And I think queerness is a part of that too. I came out when I was writing the book, and that changed things. Because in a lot of ways, but one of the ways it changed things, it was just this understanding of that when you write a book about family, that there's just so much possibility for what that can mean.
Yeah.
And so it was like helpful and affirming and joyful. Like it was all of these good things for me to get to figure out what belonging and what family meant to each of these different characters, particularly because this is a book with a lot of queer characters.
You dropped such an interesting factoid at the literal 1 hour mark of our conversation. Can you unpack that a little bit more? The book is so queer in a very cool and exciting way. Do you feel comfortable talking a bit about what that journey was like for you?
Sure. I think I'm most comfortable talking about my takeaway from it, because I used to say that I came out like later in life. I don't know when people come out.
Yeah.
So I think that the biggest part of that for me was what I was just actually saying about family. I think it stood out to me as someone who, like, when we think about ambitions, picture me as I'm like 7 and I know that I want to, in addition to all of these other crazy things, I'm like, I want to write and I want to have kids. And so I think the most important, not important, that's not fair. The most unexpected, maybe? That's not fair either. I don't know. Let's insert an adjective.
Sure. I don't know what you're trying to say. So let's reverse engineer it.
The way in which queerness like most shows up in my life today is queer family building. It's what does it mean to be a queer person with a queer family? And this understanding that like I didn't have when I was younger, that like when not everyone wants to have kids, which is also something the book is interested in. But if you do know from an early age that you want to have kids and you come out, then nobody gives you, they're not like, congratulations, here's the handbook on like how do we define family in terms of like kids and where they come from and chosen family and friendships and I don't know, like step parents and the many different kinds of families that this book is like gathering in.
Champions and showcases. Yeah.
Yes, champions and showcases. It's just not an understanding of that journey to family is not what I thought queerness was. It's not that I didn't think it was what queerness was about when I was a kid. It was more just that I just didn't think about queerness in that way. Like queerness to me, the way I saw it with other people is that my mom would always take us out of school once a year for like the day on the Hill at the Tennessee State Capitol building. And we would go from office to office and be like, please, gay marriage. So I knew about that. But what does family mean was the part that was like the closest to my particular queer experience.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all of that. I think that's so cool and so important. And I think a good reminder to both queer and non-queer people in general for queer and non-queer experiences, right? Like we are, as a society, so stuck in what we believe is quote unquote supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it just isn't true for anyone.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm such a champion of humans living life truthfully and authentically in a way that works for them. And they don't even know. Maybe they need to write a book to untangle some of those things just to realize, oh, I was wrong. Or I misunderstood. Or I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, there's just more out there.
There's more out there. The universe is vast.
The universe is vast.
Yeah. What a beautiful way to end this conversation. Eliana Ramage, thank you so much for being here. To the Moon and Back is out now. Everyone go get your copy. I'm so excited for you. And have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much for having me.
Guest Gay Reader Time.
There we go. Welcome to Gay's Reading.
Thank you so much. I am delighted to be here.
I am delighted to have you. Thank you for being my guest gay reader today. I'm debating on the order in which I want to talk to you about things.
Okay.
But I guess just to kick us off, I just have to know, what are you reading?
So right now I am reading two things. I usually read fiction and nonfiction at the same time because I like being able to jump from one world into another. And I'm usually reading something for research for whatever I'm writing. And right now I am reading a history of gunpowder because that's the rabbit hole that my brain is going down right now.
Is it for a project, or is it just
Yeah.
because you're curious? Oh, okay.
Both. It's a little bit of both. I'm a history nerd. I did a PhD in literature, but it was partly a history degree. And so
I can't handle it.
it's funny. I'm like such a dad in the way that I read. I read like histories of gunpowder and like books about geology in my spare time, like just for my own enjoyment.
That's so interesting. Are you typically drawn more to nonfiction in general?
Ooh, it actually really depends on the format. Like I'm learning to get more into audiobooks because I spend so much time in the car now and
Yeah.
a lot of driving on tour and for research. I have a really hard time listening to fiction as audiobooks.
Me too.
I don't know why. It's just like I want to hear the writer's voice in their own voice, which is what I feel like I get when I'm reading on the page. But when I'm in the car and someone else is reading it to me, it just doesn't click in the same way. But nonfiction just feels like listening to a long lecture. And if it's something I'm interested in, I can do that for hours and hours.
Okay, so you're reading about the history of gunpowder. This is your nonfiction right now. You said you read simultaneously. What is your fiction that you're reading?
So I'm also reading John Ray's book, Gone to the Wolves. I'm doing an event with him at the Strand for my own book launch. And I have to just shout out this book because it is one of the best books about fandom and music and live music in particular that I've ever read. And I'm a music writer, so I spend a lot of time reading that sort of stuff. But John really gets it, what it's like to be a young person in a bad situation and for your love of a certain kind of art or music to become your whole identity. And how that can be problematic when you become an adult and you're like, oh, that's the only identity I have.
Oh my God. Yeah. As I get older, I both feel so stuck in my ways, but also like I need to expand my identity because I don't want to be stuck in who I've been forever.
Yeah. And you're a theater person. I'm also a theater person.
I know.
And I feel like when you grow up in that environment and just learning to be a new character every like 6 months or whatever it is, I've definitely co-opted that in my adult life, in that my entire personality shifts with whatever I'm working on creatively. But I think that's fun. It doesn't bother me to be a little bit of a chameleon.
It's interesting because I imagine as an actor, you're shifting from project to project, and as a writer, you're shifting from project to project. Whereas a podcast host, I'm leaning into more sort of big picture books. Like my life, what my personality was theater, now my personality is books. So it's less specific than maybe what you're talking about, but I am jealous of it.
So I have to ask, do you have a podcast persona that is different from your personality off the microphone, or is this just unvarnished you? Because I know different
Varnished
people do
me.
it different ways.
Yeah, no, this is 100% me. For better or for worse, I don't know.
I think it's absolutely for better. I definitely have to put on my like author persona hat when I'm going to do events because I think my undiluted personality is far less charming.
Interesting. What do you need to do to turn into that, or to turn that part of you on?
It's honestly a lot of costuming. I really like to dress the part just because, and this was a thing that I learned actually when I was an actor. I spent many years in drag on stage because I did a lot of Shakespeare. I did a lot of shows where there were a lot of male characters, but not a lot of male actors. I'm tall. I have a relatively low voice. So I think I went 4 years playing men on stage without ever playing a woman. But I actually didn't mind that because I got to play a lot of cool parts I wouldn't have gotten to play otherwise. And when I was first getting into this, when I was like 16 or 17, I figured out that the thing I really needed was the shoes. I like couldn't find the character until I had the right shoes because it actually changed the way I walked. And literally stepping into a character that way became like my starting point. So when I'm going to go on a big book tour like I'm about to do, I try to stay on theme with the book because that makes it fun for everyone. Plus, it's a book that's about vintage clothes. So that's
So
it.
what are your shoes?
I have a couple of different pairs of shoes. I have a pair of vintage Mexican snakeskin cowboy boots that I wear all the time.
Okay. Those are going to be your hot wax shoes?
Those would be one pair of my hot
Sure,
wax
sure, sure.
shoes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I did also, my treat to myself was I bought the sluttiest pair of boots I've ever owned. They're Steve Madden, like bright red leather. They're going to be real fun.
Amazing. That's so fun. You mentioned history of Shakespeare, and I'm obsessed that we both have a background in theater, but also Shakespeare is scary to me, and I think a lot of other people too. So, in fact, my first job out of college and my first professional job in general was at the Public Theater in New York City.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I worked there for 3.5 years. And I almost didn't even apply because their official name is the New York Shakespeare Festival.
Mm-hmm.
And I am like, I don't want to work at a place called the New York Shakespeare Festival, which, of course, the Public Theater is how it's colloquially known, produces Free Shakespeare in the Park. They're also the home of and the birthplace of Hamilton the musical and Fun Home and incredible plays that have withstood the test of time forever. But yeah, I almost didn't apply because of the Shakespeare in the name. So I'm very curious, like if you were trying to convince a person who's afraid of picking up a Shakespeare play or going to see one, what would you say to them?
I would say go see a play before you try to read one, because these plays are not really designed to be read sitting down. And throughout the early modern period, they did start publishing plays that were designed for reading, which is partly why sometimes you'll get scripts of plays like the uncut Hamlet would take 4 hours to perform, but nobody ever performs Hamlet uncut. And seeing Shakespeare performed by actors and directors who really know what they're doing, it makes it so much more accessible. Like I did my master's degree at King's College London in the Globe across the pond, which was really lovely. And they do a thing every year with Deutsche Bank, I think they still do it, where they do a Shakespeare play cut down to a tight 45 minutes for like the equivalent of 8th graders.
Yes.
And it's always very
The
much
dream.
It's great. It's so much fun because it's very much geared towards that audience, and it is fun. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
Like one that I often will start people with if they've never been to a Shakespeare play and they're like, I don't think I'm going to enjoy this. The Bridge Theater did a production of A Midsummer Night's Dream that was one of the best productions I've ever seen. It's so accessible. It's so delightful. There's Beyonce. It's just like you can't not enjoy it. So it's a great like gateway drug. But I think the thing that people get scared of with Shakespeare is thinking, oh my God, I have to understand all of it right away. And you really don't. It's like learning a foreign language because the grammatical structure is different. The poetic meter is different than what we're used to. You don't need to know all that to enjoy a Shakespeare play, but I think we scare people away from it, particularly when we teach it, like in high school and middle school, because what we do is we teach the plot. We teach that in Hamlet, spoiler alert, a Danish prince dies. We don't teach how to actually read the language the way you would if you were in a Spanish class or a French class. And that actually makes Shakespeare, I think, so much more fun because it becomes like a little literary treasure hunt. Like when you learn something as simple as the difference between you and thou when those words get used, you, like the formal usted in Spanish, is a much more respectful way to address another person who's a higher rank than you. Whereas thou is someone who is usually of a lower status or someone you have an intimate relationship with. So as soon as you know that, listening to which characters are using those words on stage just makes it that much more interesting. So I think of it as like a delightful kind of literary treasure hunt. And the other thing that I'll say is people mistakenly, I think, treat Shakespeare as highbrow when Shakespeare was popular entertainment in his own moment. Macbeth does have all these big, amazing speeches about life and death and guilt, but there's also an entire scene that's made up of knock-knock jokes.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like have lived many lives. Theater, writing, but also like Shakespeare and also like villains and also segueing into hot wax. If this chapter of your life right now had a title, what would that title be?
Oh, gosh. Go big or go home. I think it would be.
Interesting.
Between Villains and Hot Wax, I went on such a weird journey with these books. When Villains first came out, and a lot of people don't know this, it actually didn't sell. When Villains came out, it flopped. Nobody read it. And my own publisher was like, no, we're not interested in anything else from you because this is not making money.
Yeah.
And that was really tough because I was really young. I was like 25 and experiencing this crushing reality that the lackluster sales of my first book were going to make it impossible for me to ever get published again, which is how I ended up pivoting back to academia. I was like, oh, okay, clearly the writing thing is not going to happen. And then happily for us, Villains became this like surprise sleeper hit in 2020, like 3 years after the book had been published. And I was at this weird crossroads of what do we go out with? Because suddenly people were like, oh, okay, where is the next novel? And I was coming out of the dissertation oubliette being like, sorry, what? People actually do want to see a book from me?
Yeah.
And the safe thing to do would have been to write something very like If We Were Villains because it was doing well and publishing loves a sure thing. But I was 10 years older. I'd lived some crazy life in between. I was not the same person who wrote that book. And I never wanted to write the same book over and over again.
Sure.
So I said to my agent, I was like, okay, let's take a risk. Let's go out with the rock and roll book that already died on sub 4 times and see if we can make some magic happen. And I just gave it my all with that book. I swung for the fences, even though it was really risky. And we actually managed to get one over the wall. We found an amazing editor who has been so cool to work with. And especially just like with the way the world is going, where everything good feels endangered, I'm in a place of, I don't want to spend a minute doing something that doesn't feel worth it.
What is your elevator pitch for Hot Wax?
Yes, the elevator pitch for Hot Wax that I gave to my agent was, this is Spinal Tap meets Thelma and Louise.
Do you want to unpack that a little bit?
Yes.
That was like a really succinct, quick elevator ride. And now what if someone got off with you and said, let me walk you to your office. Tell me more.
Tell me more. That's always the goal.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, is leave them wanting a little bit more show business. But yeah, so it is a book about 2 westward road trips. It's 2 timelines, one in the summer of 1989 and one in the summer of 2018. And on the first timeline, we have a 10-year-old girl named Suzanne who is on a disastrous concert tour with her father's rock band. And then 29 years later, she is on the run from some stuff in her personal life and finds herself kind of retracing the steps of that concert tour 30 years ago and unpacking a lot of what happened that changed her life forever.
Yeah. So what was this living in your car research trip like for you?
It was awesome. I loved it. I finished my PhD program in May of 2023, and it had been a really rough couple of years because graduate school is like rough, period. I was also living in Washington, D.C. during the first dump truck administration. COVID was happening. I had some real serious personal tragedy. I had a terrible health crisis. And I was just in a bad place. And by the time I was done with that, I was like ready to chew my own leg off to get loose. And I had this experience one day of driving out of DC. I don't remember where I was going. And it felt like an anvil was coming off my shoulders. And I realized with this like lightning bolt of clarity, I was like, oh, I hate it here. I hate it here. And I need to leave and I need to be traveling because I've always traveled a lot in my life. And I didn't realize how much I was missing that being in the same place for 6 years.
Sure.
So I sold most of my stuff, put the rest of it in storage, and then spent 18 months living out of a 2-door Honda and broke my leg in the middle of that, which made things a little more complicated. But I got into this great rhythm of, I love a road trip, especially when I don't have a precise time that I need to be in a particular place. So it was a lot of me just driving to research locations and living as much like the people in the book as I could. I unfortunately could not afford to buy a vintage trailer, although I did go stay in a couple for that reason.
Sure.
But yeah, it was a cool rhythm of like, I would get up and get in the car and drive for 4 hours and take weird little state and country highways because the interstate is where fun goes to die. And just anytime I saw something interesting, I would pull over. There's a circus in town. There's weird museum over here.
Giant ball of twine.
Yes. The giant pistachio in Alamogordo. I have been to see that pistachio a number of times. And then I'd stop at a diner in the middle of nowhere and sit and write for 2 hours and then get back in the car, drive another 4 hours and crash for the night in wherever. And just absorbing so much life around me in so many different places made it so easy to put that on the page. A lot of the conversations that you see are real conversations that I overheard. A lot of the locations that you see are based on real places I went. Just because I am a method writer.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah. Which I think is a result of having been an actor for so long.
Yeah, it's so funny that you say that because it goes back to the shoes, right? It's
all about the shoes.
Yeah, no, really. So what is the process like then coming, for lack of a better term, like coming back to earth? What is after such an intense time to then let the dust settle, and now what does this feel like?
I'll let you know when it feels like the dust has settled. Because
Sorry.
technically I have lived in this house for a little over a year, but it's still very rare that I'm here for more than 2 days in a row. I'm still not fully moved in. I'm so glad you can't see this corner over here because it's literally just like boxes of books to the ceiling.
Yeah.
And I am getting ready to leave on tour again in 10 days, and I'm going to 40 cities and 3-4 countries in 2.5 months. So
Wow.
I'm still very in this kind of like on the road touring life mode. But I am looking ahead to 2026 when I'm ready to like settle down a little bit for a little while. I do have some residencies lined up, which I'm really looking forward to because increasingly email is like the modern Hydra. Like you answer one and it grows 5 heads. There are 5 replies and you just can never get away from it.
Yeah.
And that cuts into my creative time so much that unless I actually take dedicated time away from my desk, I don't get anything done.
Yeah.
So,
Right. So it's almost cyclical.
Yeah,
Where
very
now,
cyclical.
now you can pay attention to this. Now it's this. Now it's putting on the costume and doing this other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Circling back to books for a minute.
Yes.
Was there something in particular that really had an impact on you as a young person or with a background in theater to then transition into writing? Was there a thing that sparked that for you?
The funny thing is, my writing and my theater stuff moved exactly in tandem. I started writing really young. I also started acting really young. I think the first play that I was in was a little community theater thing. I think I was like 6.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's not true, actually. I was in a Huggies commercial as a baby because my
I
baby...
knew I recognized you.
I've actually been topless on TV, fun fact. Yeah, when I was a toddler, we had a babysitter who like really wanted to be a movie star, and she used to take me and my brother to auditions for commercials and things and pretend that we were her kids. But yeah, I started writing at a really young age and got serious about theater at about the same time. I discovered Shakespeare by accident in my parents' library when I was like 9, which I remember very vividly, and most of it went straight over my head, but something about the language like felt really important and something I wanted to understand. So I got weirdly obsessed with that. I was a voracious reader. I did not have a lot of friends. I was like an angry, queer little punk in Catholic school, and all of my friends were imaginary in one way or another. But I think that learning storytelling in the theater really did influence the way I learned storytelling as a writer, which is partly why my books are so dialogue heavy. I learned how to tell stories with almost nothing but dialogue because that's what you do in the theater. And all of my stories are ensemble stories. I rarely have one main character. It's a bunch of different people playing off each other because I've been part of a troupe my whole life in one way or another. And I did eventually become a performance studies scholar, and that informs all of my work because rock and roll is every bit as performative as Shakespeare. It's just a different kind of performance. And
it's a version of drag.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's like the gender stuff in like 70s, 80s rock and roll is absolutely fascinating, the way that gets negotiated on stage. And I love reading performance like that. So even though I'm not really a performer in my own right anymore, except when I put the boots on and do the author thing.
Yeah.
That vocabulary is always there, and that structure is always there of how I think about narrative and character.
So you say you were a voracious reader when you were a kid. Is there something that sticks out as just like a book that you've always cherished?
Yeah. I mean, I did get very into campus novels because I was addicted to that kind of academic environment because that was one of the few things I was good at as a kid. I remember vividly reading John Knowles' book, A Separate Piece, when I was in 6th grade. And it was the first book I read that really upset me on the deep, visceral level. Just because it was so cosmically unfair, and it's just devastating what happens in that book. But I was obsessed with it, and I reread it every year for a bunch of years. And it was my first encounter with fiction that felt so real. I was having a physical response to it. And I'd had that experience with live performance before, but I was like, oh, this is the kind of book that I want to write, is a book that can feel like it just punched you in the gut. Or like it just kissed you on the mouth, if it's a good thing, if you get that like warm, fuzzy feeling.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. That makes you feel something.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, I love that. It's been a very long time since a separate piece has been in my universe. Maybe I should crack it open and...
It's short. It's a
Yeah.
quick read. It's worth revisiting. I've revisited it at a bunch of different ages, and I get something different out of it every time.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. I know. In this chapter of my life, I don't have time to reread books.
No, I get that.
It's funny because one of my favorite books of the year is Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall. And I am doing an in-person event with her in a month.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I've had her on the podcast. So I like read the book a long time ago, but now I have to reread it to interview her in person. So I'm like excited that I have an excuse to reread the book.
Yeah.
No, that's really fun. M.L. Rio, I am so happy to have you. Thank you so much for being here. Everyone, go get Hot Wax, which is out now wherever you get your books. And have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Eliana, M.L., thank you both so much for being here. Everyone, go check out their books, To the Moon and Back and Hot Wax, both of which are out now. And I will see you next week. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.